Okay, let's wait for the attendees to attend the session.
Yep.
Hugo, you are the green light in this case.
Let's wait for 10 seconds.
Sure thing.
Okay, I think we can begin. Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Joget DX series webinar. All right. My name is Adrian. I'm a technical consultant here in Joget, and I'll be the moderator for today. With me, we have Hugo Lim, VP of Customer Success, and also one of the panelists. Would you like to say something, Hugo?
Hi, thank you everyone for attending today's sessions. I hope that everyone stay put and be safe at these times. So again, welcome to join these our sessions today.
All right. And we have Justin, our technical consultant as well, and our speaker for today. Say hi, Justin.
Hello, guys, and welcome to today's Joget DX session. It's nice to have you all, ladies and gentlemen, here.
All right. So before we begin, we do have a few housekeeping items to go over. First of all, this webinar will be recorded. If you miss any of all today's event, you'll later have access to the recordings. We are taking questions from the audience as well. So you please go to the Zoom control panel and use the Q&A button or even the chat to submit your questions. We'll get to it as many as we can near the end of today's webinar. And lastly, at the end of today's webinar, you'll be directed to a survey form. Please do provide us with feedback so we can further improve our presentation better for you in the future. Okay, with that, we'll kick off with today's webinar. Let me give up remote control. Over to you, Justin.
All right, so thank you very much, Mr. Adrian, and we will continue with the session. So today is the third episode of Everything Joget DX webinar series. And there will be two topics that we will be going through today, which is progressive web apps and process enhancement plugin. And here's today's agenda, and we have just gone through the introductions. And in the next agenda that it's coming up, we will be building a simple request service app so that we can demonstrate to our new users that are new to Joget, and we will see how we can deploy an app from absolute zero all the way unto having a full-fledged enterprise-ready app. And then after that, we will go through the features that we want to be talking about today. And finally, we'll end with the recap and what next right after. And for today's features, we'll be learning one of the four main improvements of Joget DX, which is progressive web apps. And also we'll be discussing about the process enhancement plugin. And just for your information, you can find the information about these elements in our Joget knowledge base. All right, so for the demo that we'll be doing for today, we'll be creating a fairly simple service request app in just under 5 minutes. And here's the blog link that our moderator is going to paste in the chat about now. And in this app, we'll be creating a fairly simple form to request a service and creating a CRD element that goes along with it. And then we'll be incorporating these features, the new DX features like progressive web apps and process enhancement plugin, into our service request app. But before we begin with the app building exercise, first we need to know what CRD means. So CRUD is basically an abbreviation of create, retrieve, update, delete. These are the basic integral components of a permanent storage element. We'll be creating this later on in the app building exercise. So what are these features available in? For the process enhancement plugin, it's available only for professional and enterprise edition. But for the PWA feature, it is available for all Joget editions all across the board. All right, and coming to deployment options that we have, for the purpose of this demo, I'll be using Joget on-premise installation. However, there's more deployment options available, such as deployment on cloud or deployment on premise, and other deployment options like Docker, OpenShift, and so forth. So you can go ahead, visit this website, www.joget.org, and you can click on the Get Started button to see the full list of deployment options available to you. And now coming to the next slide. So if you would like to try Joget out, here's a video recording that I've done to see how simple it is to do in just under 2 minutes. So let's watch a simple video over here. Oh, sorry about that. Let me replay the video. All right, so here is the joget.org website. I'll be clicking on Get Started. And here are the few options that we have, which is to run on cloud or on premise. So I'm going to click on cloud. And for the purpose of the exercise, we're just going to click on free tier. And now it brings us to this page to register our cloud account. So we'll quickly fill up the details of the cloud account fairly quickly. So fill up the name, last name. We're almost done. All right. So over here in this video, you can just take note of this account name because this is how we are going to be accessing our sample Joget cloud account later in this video. So I'll let the video continue to play. I'll submit the registration. And now it brings us to the email verification page that we set up in the email that we key into. So I'm going to refresh my email very quickly. Here we go. So I'm going to click into the account verification. You can either click on the link that you see in the email to verify the account, or just simply copy the verification code and just paste it in the verification form and just complete the verification process. And in a while, and here we go. Now we have our Joget Cloud account just like that. And this is the URL that can be accessed that we keyed in previously. And the default administrator account for this any Joget Cloud, new Joget Cloud accounts will be both admin and admin. So usually at this point is highly recommended for you to change the default password straight away. So without further ado, over here, I click on the Joget Cloud link. And just like that, in under 2 minutes, we already have a Joget DX instance ready to use for us. And here's the link of how we can access it. All right, and I hope that clears it up on how you can set up a Joget account in the cloud. So now we have come to the demonstration of how we're going to build a simple service request app in just under 5 minutes. So I'm going to my live instance over here. Okay, so over here in my Joget, I've already logged in as the default administrator user. So I'm going to go ahead and design a new app. So I'm going to click on Design New App here. And we'll simply fill up the app details. So simple service request app. Because the app name, we'll name it accordingly. So we're going to save the app details. And here we go. Now we have an empty app. But as you can see, we don't yet have any elements such as a form element, a data list element, user view, and so forth. So the first thing we do here is we are going to create a new form. So click on Create New Form. We're going to fill in the form details accordingly quickly here. So this would be the request form.
So guys, just to a quick run through, in Joget ecosystems, a Joget app is the you can think of it as the app container that Justin has just created. So the 4 elements that Justin talked about earlier, there's this form, data list, user views, and processes. These are the basic building blocks of a Joget app. So Justin, let's go ahead and please continue with what you are doing. So I'm just trying to bring folks that are new to Joget up to speed on what we are looking at. Thank you, Justin.
Okay, yeah. So once we have our form details over here, we're going to save. And the form builder will be brought up automatically on the next browser tab. So we're just gonna wait a short moment for the form builder to load. And it should be done about now. And here we go. So here's the form builder for the request form that we have. The first thing we're going to do is to change the section label. So we're going to click on edit section, and we are going to change the label to something, to a meaningful name such as request details. Okay, so now that we have our section label, we should add in a few basic elements for what we can expect in a service request app. So let's drag in a few text fields such as name. Perhaps you would like to fill up your request details. What would you like to request for? And perhaps a date picker element to choose when would you require the service. So let's change the field IDs and names accordingly first.
So I would like to note that as Justin is going around, going through the form design, adding text fields, some of you may wonder if we will need to create, like go into the database and to edit the schema design and whatnot. So in Joget, you do not need to do that. So as we drag and drops and start declaring and creating all these text field and date pickers, Joget would be able to take these informations and provisions and create the necessary table and columns back in the database. So there's no need to do so. So by merely designing the forms, we are designing the table already.
Yep, so thank you for the explanation, Hugo. So here we have our form. Just like that, it's ready. So we're going to save the form. We'll wait for it to save. Here we go. Right, so currently we have our form. If we go back to the app design, here's our form, but we still need a data list element to display records that we have in the request that we fill up into the request form, and we need a user view to show these elements to the front end, where your end users will use the form that you have or use the data list that we have to see information. But we don't have to do that manually. If we come back to the form builder, we can start using the app generator feature. So let's click on that. And here we have several options. So here, there's an option for us to generate a CRUD. So let's do that right now. Just check the option and click on generate. And here we go, just like that, it's done. So we can close this app generator window. We can safely close the form builder. And as you can see here, we have a few elements generated for us, like the request data list and its appropriate user view. So very quickly, let's take a look at how the data list looks like. We're editing the data list. Let's do some housekeeping over here. So for example, the ID column is not too important to show to end users. It's not relevant. So we're just going to remove this column. And then we're going to readjust a few columns to its appropriate place. And all right, it seems good. So we're going to save the data list. And okay, we can close the data list builder. And at this point, after you have used the app generator feature, not only will you have your elements generated for you, but the app generator has also automatically published your app into the Joget App Center. So for example, if I were to close this window, and if I were to refresh the page, and here we go, you can see our app is now published to the App Center, and end users can now simply launch this app. So that's what we're going to do. And here we go. This is our simple service request app. Let's run through this CRUD element over here that we have called manage requests. And let's try creating a new request. So let's fill up the details. Request. And select the date. And now we should save the form. And here we go. Here's the data list that we can see, our new request record. And just like that, we have managed to generate an app in just under 5 minutes. A simple service request app from zero all the way until a full-fledged enterprise-ready app. And without further ado, we'll be moving on to the first topic of today's webinar. We'll be talking about progressive web apps, which is also the abbreviation, which also stands for PWA. But before we move on towards the practical exercises, first we need to know what exactly is PWA. In short, PWA is basically an app that's delivered through the web, such as your web browser that you currently have, while still providing the closest possible native-like app experience to you. So what can you expect out of a PWA application? So a PWA app, basically, we can expect reliability, and when the internet connectivity is unfavorable. A good example of this would be like your chat apps that you have in your mobile device currently. Even when you're not connected to the internet, the app still opens. You can still see your past messages. So in that sense, it's reliable. Right. And the second criteria we can expect is smooth user interaction. So when the internet connectivity is unfavorable, you can still expect a PWA app to be smooth, its transitions to be smooth, and its scrolling to be seamless. And the third criteria we can expect out of a PWA app is a responsive web design. So a PWA app is expected to perform well, to fit well to a PC device, a mobile device, a tablet device, and so forth. And of course, the fourth criteria of PWA is it has to be installable. It has to be a similar experience to how you install apps in a mobile device, for example. So you can expect an icon to be on your screen. Don't worry about all these criteria. We will be showing you later on in the demo. And the last point I would like to make is you can expect a PWA app to be able to re-engage your end users, such as web push notification capability, apps that run in full screen, and even more that I will explain later on. So let's go to the first criteria. But before we start with this, first, let's go back to our live demonstration and show you how is PWA set up. So in Joget especially, PWA is already incorporated into every Joget app that we create. So such as your apps like the default apps here, or even the app that we just made, has already incorporated PWA features, such as the baseline app here. But there are one more thing that we need to do before we can support offline features for our USP elements that we have, such as the CRUD element over here. So to set up PW offline capabilities, first we need to go to the App Center. We should edit the app. So very quickly, I will edit the user view. Okay, so just a simple showcasing to you. In the settings, in the user view settings over here, if we click the progressive web app settings, we can see that PWA features is enabled by default, and so as web push notifications. But you have the options here to configure as you need. And now coming back to our user view design, I'm going to edit this CRUD element and go to performance and offline. So you notice here we have a few additional settings, PWA offline settings. So just as not to miss anything, I'm just going to enable PWA caching and offline support for all three of these. Save the configuration, and we're going to save the user view fairly quickly. And that's it. So now this CRUD element would already support offline caching. And now we can jump into our first criteria that we can talk about, which is the interface of a PWA app, a native-like user experience. So for example, on a Windows device, when I install a PWA app, it actually appears as an icon on your desktop or your start menu. And this is how the app would look like, which can be also used in full screen. And here is an example of an iOS device, for example. And a PWA app would also appear as one of your icons on your home screen. And this is how the app would look like. Almost seamless to how an app that you can expect out of the mobile app store. So coming into the live demo, I will teach you how do we install a PWA app.
So here let me just quickly add in here, by the virtue of PWA terms is that you would be able to use the application just like what Justin has explained earlier. And I would also like to note that, Justin, can you show the responsive design nature of our applications and the ability to change the look and feel of our current simple service request app as well?
Sure thing. Right. So the first thing I would like to show you guys is our responsive app design. So if I were to open up the dev tools very quickly here, if I were to toggle the device toolbar, we can see that immediately Joget's interface has been adapted to a mobile design seamlessly.
Okay.
And this is how it looks like on a tablet device. It's a little bit small to see, and so forth and so forth. So
the idea here is that you are able to design the application once and being able to adapt and accommodate to all screen sizes and different type of platforms. So as it is a PWA, in addition to that, right, we will also be able to support what normally native apps would be able to, for example, web push notifications and also in-device offline storage as well. So which is what Justin is going into now. So, but Justin, just for another 10 seconds, can you show to the audience on how we can say tweak the look and feel of the current apps?
Sure thing.
To say that to better accommodate each of the client's corporate branding, right? So can you please show them that? Thank you.
Okay, sure. It's fairly easy to modify the user view that we have. For example, in this case, to make it obvious, we are going to change the color scheme of the interface here. So we can go back to our app design. We can edit the user view once more. And you should navigate to settings and click on theme. And here we can see the various settings that is available for us. So for example, the primary color, let's try to change it to something pleasant, like purple, for example. So we're going to click on save. And now when we come back to our app in runtime, if I refresh this app, you can expect the color to change right now. And here we go, just like that.
So thank you for that, Justin. One more question from the audience. Let's try to accommodate to that as well. So how can we reposition our sidebar? Say that we would like to move it up.
Right.
Can you do that? Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. So let's say we would like to tweak more configurations other than just the color, for example. There are various more settings available in this Joget DX theme that we have called progressive theme. So for example, here we can see the configuration property for menu position currently is set to a side menu. And what I mean by side menu is the side menu here. So let's change this setting fairly quickly.
So there's a no menu. So it is pretty much dependent on the theme itself. If you can just go back to the previous tab, Justin. I don't mean to interfere too much with your demo, but I'm just trying to accommodate to the questions that we get from the audience, and to make the demo more livelier. So can you also show the list of user themes that we have?
Okay,
so,
sure.
Yep. So the list of user themes, it is extensible as well. So if you have a very specific needs that the default themes would not be able to fulfill your requirements, it is also possible to develop your own one. You can also customize the theme on top of existing themes. So yeah, Justin, thank you. So can you please move the menu bar away?
All
to
right.
the top. Yep.
Sure thing. So coming back to the menu position property, let's say I would like the menu to be on below the header. So for example, let's change it to a setting. Now we're going to save the user view and come back to runtime. Let's see how it looks like. And here we go. So even the menu position can be switched fairly simply, like to the top over here. And okay, I hope that answers the question. And Now I'm going to teach you how we can install a PWA application. So for example, the browser I'm using is a Chromium-based browser. So any apps that do support PWA, it would show up here as a button. It's going to prompt you to install a app. So we're going to click on that. So it's telling us to install the simple service request app. We're just going to proceed. So now as we click on install, we can see that it has already turned into a PWA app, and I can drag it around, and it's as if it's a app entirely on its own. And it's also responsive to your sizes. So if I switch it down like this, it becomes a mobile responsive design, tablet design, and full screen. Okay, so I hope that answers the question for a native-like look and feel. And now we're coming to one of the key features of PWA in Joget, which is the capability for offline caching and synchronization. And what I mean by this precisely is, for example, when we go offline, we can see a few behavioral changes in Joget, such as the icon for the Wi-Fi here. And we can see as I highlighted here, the offline indicator. And in the next screen here, I'm going to show you how offline synchronization works. We're going to come back to the online demonstration and show you how we can perform offline synchronization. So for example, we have our CRUD element over here. We've already configured PWA early on. So I'm going to go to DevTools, and I'm going to deliberately switch off the internet connection just for this page alone. So let's see how it performs. And here we go. We can see the offline indicator down here on the left. It's a bit quick, right? And we can see the internet indicator over here. And so in typical websites, if you were to not have any internet connection, by right, this app wouldn't work at all. But as you can see, as I click on welcome, as I click on the manage request user view menu, it is still working as of now. So let's go ahead and click on a new request. Right, so in this case, since the CRUD element is configured to cache on offline storage, it is still able to save any progress or any of the information that you submit, and it will later on synchronize as the internet connectivity comes back online. So for example, I'm going to fill this up once again with a different information. A bit quick. Okay, so just take note of the details that enter here. So now that I click on save, okay, so now we are shown in this interface. It says that we're offline, but the data that we entered previously, it is now stored in a temporary cache in your device. So it's going to indicate here that we have a managed request submission. It is now pending. So in this instance, if I were to kick the internet connection back online, we should see a different behavior. So for example, now the internet connectivity has indicated that we're back online, and it has successfully synchronized the information that we entered. So now if we go back to the CRUD, here we go. Just like that, it managed to synchronize the form submission in the background without any user interaction.
Thank you for that, Justin. So I hope I'm not throwing you off the track. So here's the challenge. So this is off the script, guys. So what will happen, as we are all aware, when you're offline, there are certain things that must be validated at the server side. So say, for example, in a form design, right? Can we go to a form design? And so that I can try to illustrate.
Okay, so I'm coming back to
so let's say in the form design, we have some form of validations, okay? And the validations, normally, it will only occur at the server side. So can we show on how it would behave when we purposely fail the validations, when we are filling up the form during network downtime? So can we please say make the request text field as a mandatory field?
Sure thing. Let's do that
Okay.
now. So this is the request field. I'm going to select a validator, the default validator. And we're going to configure this as a mandatory field. Save the field configuration. So now we can see that the mandatory indicator is showing up for the request field. We're going to save the form, and we're going to come back to our PWA app. So now if we were to look back at the form, we can now see that this field is now mandatory.
Okay.
And, okay, so let's try it again. Let's go back offline.
Okay.
So for example,
so I hope that the service worker has kicked in.
Here we go. So now that we have our
Okay.
offline indicator once again, the internet connectivity indicator, let's start to fill out the form. So here I'm going to fill it out once again. Okay, since this request field is a mandatory field, and let's try to deliberately break the validation or disobey the validation rules and not fill that field out. And now I'm going to hit the save button. Okay, so as you can see, the request field is mandatory, and yet it still seems like it's submitted, but don't be afraid, this is not the case. And since form validation is performed on the server side, and the form submission is merely cached to the background. And now let's see what happens when we re-enable the internet connection. So we're back online, and we're gonna let it get synchronized in the background. All right, so now we can see that the background synchronization has failed because there's an invalid validation. But don't worry, we have a chance to remedy this error. So we can see that there's a form error as the status. We can click on view. And here we go. So we can see the warning, validation error, missing required value. So right now, let's just obey the validation rules and fill it out.
Thank you, Justin. So I would also like to note that if you are filling up a assignment forms and you are and the form is part of a process flow assignment, there's validations in there, or the same assignments is assigned to multiple parties, the synchronization process will take place and attempt to complete the assignments. And if the assignment has been completed by someone else, so you will be redirected to the result page and you will be able to see the state of your submissions. So you will know that, for example, your forms has failed the validations, or the assignment has already been completed by someone else, then it's no longer available. So that's how the synchronizations would work. And I would also like to note that we do support a uploading attachment while offline also.
All right, okay. So now that we're done showing how offline caching and synchronization work, let's move on to the third biggest key features of PWA feature in Joget, which is the capability for web push notifications. And since we are on a timeline over here, so I'm just going to show you how it looks like. This is how it looks like on an Android device, for example. So this is how a web push notification would look like. It's almost indistinguishable from an app that you would have installed from the mobile app store. And this is how a notification looks like in my Windows machine. And now here I have a short video to show you how web push notification works. So let me play this video very quickly. So let me just kick up the quality. Okay. So now you can see that my PWA app icon is in the background over here. Oops, sorry about that. Coming back to video. Okay, so now I'm going to open the PWA application. So this is the default expense claims app that we have in every Joget installation. We're going to, for example, approve the application. The approver is set to admin, which is the user himself. So now the admin is going to complete the expense claim submission. And in the moment here, you should be able to see a new notification popped up right here on below. So this is how a web push notification would work. And with that said, we are done with the first topic, PWA. If you have any questions regarding PWA, or in fact, any questions about Joget as overall, don't be afraid to use the Q&A feature in your webinar UI and put in your questions, and the panelists will get back to your questions as soon as they can. And now we would like to move on to the second topic of the session. We'll be talking about the process enhancement plugin. And Hugo, I will bring you in on the introduction of this plugin.
All right, thank you, Justin. So I would just like to bring the audience that are not so familiar to the Joget platforms up to speed. So what we are looking at on this diagram is a typical approval process. As you can see, there are two swim lanes that would denote two participants. The top one being the applicants and the bottom one being the approvers. So this is a very typical classic approval process, right? So so on the submissions from the applicant, you will then flow to the approver for approval, obviously, right? So here comes the requirements, right? So what if, right, we would like to create a applications based on the process design that you have just seen earlier, right? How can we enhance it, right? Such that obviously point A, to manage request approval, we can already do that, right? If we, in the first iterations, where Justin has created a CRUD entity, right, to take care and records requests, right? So, and combined with the process design earlier, we are able to orchestrate and provisions a approval process, right? So here comes the more added in the second iterations. Let's say that we would like to have the ability to perform bulk approval, right? So that if there are 10 instances waiting for managers to be approved, how can we make the manager's life easier by putting in a bulk approval features, right? How can we also, point C, right? How can we make it easy for the managers who can't make a decisions and to pass it, reassign it to other managers, right? D, right, point D obviously would be able to seek clarifications from the requester when needed to. So there are lots of back and forth. So you can imagine there would be a loop there. And of course, point E, right, the requester himself, herself would be able to list down their own requests. So this is like basic requirements here. And finally, we have also learned about the PWA push notifications. So is it possible for us to also incorporate that as part of our process flow earlier, right? And G, how about there is a request that is more important, right? And requires approval from multiple parties, multiple approval. How can we incorporate that? Do we need to make changes to the design that we have seen earlier, right? And also ability to design and change the form design. This, we have seen it earlier. Justin tried to make changes to the request text field and to make it mandatory. So we have seen that happening already. So, right. And moving on, okay. So, so there's quite a bit of requirements here. So this is to set the stage for our next agenda topic of discussions. So Joget, right? So once you have developed the applications, of course, accessibility is very important, availability very important. So how can we make sure that the app can be used everywhere, anywhere, with and without internet connectivity? So we have the PWA coming into the picture, right? And also to be able to change it to our corporate branding, which we have already seen earlier. And the final point is, most importantly, how long does it take to incorporate all these features that we have just gone through? Over to you, Justin. I have set the stage. So
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. So wow. So going through the requirements that the customers supposedly have, that's quite an amount of unique requirements, such as especially the ability to perform bulk approval, or in fact a bulk rejection, or to even reassign an approval task, and so on and so on and so on. But worry not, this is why we have the process enhancement plugin that we'll be talking about today. So how are we going to implement all of these requirements? And especially, how long does it take to build all of these requirements? Simply to say, Hugo, 2 minutes. All I need is 2 minutes. So let me show the audience how. So all we need to do is to install this plugin, and we can support all of the features that we need over here. So very quickly, we're going to show you how do we install the process enhancement plugin. I'm going to come back to the live demonstration. Okay, let's close off all of these windows. Okay, so now coming back to the App Center over here, we can go to this button here. We can click download from Marketplace. So here we will navigate to the Joget Marketplace to be able to download any of your preferred default apps or plugins that is contributed by the Joget or contributors around the world. And if you have not created an account or signed up an account, please do so. So here I'm going to quickly log into my account in the Marketplace. For example, click on login. All right, so I've managed to log into the Joget Marketplace. And here we go. So here's the plugin that we're looking for, the process enhancement plugin for Joget DX. Let's go to it. Right, and in short summary, the process enhancement plugin is not just a single plugin type in Joget, but actually several combinations of plugin types that forms a plugin suite to provide us the enhancements that we need for today. So these are the plugin types that it's provided in a single package. And to install this plugin, it is as easy as click on the install button up here. So let's click on that. And do we want to download? Okay, click OK. So we'll wait for it to install. And here we go. It's already successfully installed. So let's close this window. Now, if we want to figure out if the plugin has already been installed, there are two ways to do so. The first way we can do that is to go to the admin bar. We can click on monitor, and we can click on the system logs. And here we can see that, yeah, the process enhancement plugin has already been started. That's the first good sign that we have. And the second way we can check for it is to go to settings, click on manage plugins. And here we go. We can see all of the plugins that is included into the process enhancement plugin. So now that we're done installing, let's get working with our simple service request app. And so now I'm going to go to what does the process enhancement plugin enhance in Joget DX. So the first feature I would like to talk about is the enhanced process app generators that process generators that we have for both approval and assignment process. So we're going to come into the live demo and edit the app. And as of now, if you recall, we only have a CRUD element, but if we click on processes, we still do not have a approval process, and we need it. So let's edit our form once again. And now we can return to our app generator. So let's go there. All right, and on the surface, it doesn't seem like there's any difference, but actually the plugin is already in play here. So if we click on more info, this is the process that we can expect to be generated later on for our service request app. So let's check this option and click on generate. And it's going to take a while. Joget is doing its work. All of it from generating your processes. And okay, so now our generation is complete. We can close the window and close the form builder. And now we are ready to click into processes. So just now we don't have any process whatsoever. And with a click of a few buttons, we already have our request approval process. And this is the process that has already been generated for us, a fairly simple looking approval process. Even then, all the mappings has already been completed for us to its default settings, such as the participant mapping, the activity mapping. Let's just go to the process mapper to make it clearer. So as you can see, the applicants has already been mapped to the correct users. The tools, the activities has all been done by the process enhancement plugin. So without further ado, let's go back to runtime and see what other enhancements we can expect out of the process enhancement plugin. So let's launch the app. So we'll wait for the app to launch, and here we go. So now, as you can see, we have a new user view category, and this user view category has several new elements, such as a clarification inbox, approval inbox, and even your own specific users submitted requests, withdrawn, and closed requests, and so on. So now we can come back to the slide. I've already shown you the enhanced process relative. So now we will be taking a look at the second key feature of the process enhancement plugin, which is the form and data list actions to perform approve, reject, clarify, and reassign, even with bulk action support. So let's come back to the live demo. So for example, we still do not have any requests submitted yet. So very quickly, we are going to submit a service request. And I'm going to fill out the information here, the sample information. Almost done. So now I'm going to submit a request approval process. It's going to start a new process instance. So click on submit. All right, so now in the my submitted request inbox over here, we can see that me, the user, as the admin user, has successfully submitted this request. And if we see from the perspective of the approver, you can notice there are a few buttons here that is available to you. But now, not only the data list actions, but if we take a look inside this form, if we go into the approval activity, we can also see these buttons are available to us, such as to assign this back to the requester, to clarify, to reject this application, approve it, or even reassign. But there's a fairly common question that we have. A fairly common question we get about the process enhancement plugin is, are we able to customize the buttons that we see down here? So for example, if inside the approval activity, we do not want a reassign button, let's to say, yes, it is certainly possible to customize all of these buttons. To do so, very quickly, I'm going to come back to the app design. We're going to click on processes, and we are going to go to map open up the process mapper just for your visual clarity.
So I would just like to jump in and note that all the features that I have requested earlier can be implemented without any change made at all to my original design through the use of the process enhancement plugin. Over to you, Justin.
Okay, thank you, Hugo. Right, so coming back, I was talking about how do we customize the buttons down here for the approval activity. So inside the process mapper feature for our request approval process, here's our approval activity. And you notice that there's there are more settings available for this activity. So let's click into it. And here we can see the settings that the process enhancement plugin provides to us. So for example, we have the option to execute this, this activity in the background, or we can set settings for read-only permissions, or enable clarification features, reassignment features, process withdrawal capabilities, and so forth and so forth. But for now, let's just focus on the ability to reassign. So here we go. We are at the reassign tab. And let's say we wouldn't want this button for this activity, so we can just simply uncheck this option and just save the activity configuration. And here we go, just like that. If I were to refresh this page, this button would no longer exist. So let's do that. And here we go, just like that. We managed to customize the functions that we want. So coming back to how it works, so for example, we can just click approve. So I'm going to do that. And just like that, we have managed to approve the service request application. So now, as the admin, since the admin is also the requester, we can click to close request. And here we go. So we can see that this application has been approved and closed. And now I would like to show you a few unique abilities from the perspective of the requester. So I'm going to submit another request here. So let me fill out the information once again. Submit the request approval process. Okay. So now, in the perspective of the requester, I will go to my submitted request, and we can see our application is pending approval. And if I were to click into approval, the approver now sees a task assignment ready for him to approve. But let's say, for example, the requester, which is the admin himself, would like to retract his request. Let's say he would like to cancel his request. He doesn't want it to go through the approval process anymore. So what we can do is we can just highlight the option here, and we can just click on the button, withdraw. So let's see what happens. All right. So just like that, we've managed to withdraw the process instance. It's no longer available under the My Submitted Requests inbox. And now if you go to the approval inbox, the task assignment is also no longer there. So now, as the requester, we are coming to my withdrawn request, and we can see that this specific process instance has indeed been withdrawn. And just to double confirm, we can click into here, and we can see that the status has been changed to withdrawal. All right. But before I move on to the next key feature, I would like to show you one more unique feature of this plugin. So I'm just going to fill in one more process, submit another request. So fill in the information, submit the process. Okay, so now coming from the approver's perspective, let's view this task assignment. Okay, so there's one thing that we can also notice inside the approver's or in fact any activity. There's a progress bar up here. Sorry about that. So let's click into it. And as we can see, we can actually see the progression of the process. For example, this process instance is started by the admin. It is also now pending for the approval to the admin, and we can see that this is indeed in progress. So for example, let's see if we can get it to flow to the clarification activity. So we'll click on clarify. And by clicking on clarify, it should go back to the, we can see in the clarification inbox for admin. We're going to click on view. So now we can see on the top right here, there's actually a progression going on. So we can see how far we've gone through the entire process. And we can see that approval has been completed by admin, and now clarification activity is in progress. And you'll be able to see how this process instance widget here will work, so on and so forth. Right, so now that we are done discussing about the form and dataless actions, I'm moving on to one of the third key features of the process enhancement plugin, which is the capabilities to withdraw a process, which we have already done previously with the withdraw button, as you can see. And to the final key capability of this process enhancement that I would like to discuss today, which is the ability to perform multiple approvals. So this is one of the hot features that was highly requested. And this provides the ability to either enforce partial or even a full approval from multiple users before an activity can flow. Let me show you that in the live demo. Okay, so for example, we're going to go back to our process mapper. So over here, let's say we would like to modify the approval activity once again. So let's click into more settings. Okay, so let's scroll down and we should be able to find the option here. So under the approval tab, as you can see, there is a configuration available to configure multiple approval. So by default, it is set to disable. So let's change that. Let's try it out. So we can either select it to have all of the assignees, all of the approvers to approve it, or just any required number of assignees. So for example, let's just click on the condition for all assignee being approved, and let's just submit the configuration. And just like that, we managed to support multiple approval feature in a mere single click. Whereas if we were to go the coding way, this type of feature could take definitely more time than what this webinar allows. So let's see how the multiple approval works. But before we do that, we still need to modify the mapping for the approver. So let's just edit the approver mapping very quickly. So if you recall previously, we set the multiple approval rule to all users. All of the approvers must approve before it can flow. So in this case, let's just select the admin user and the user called cat grant. So let's submit this mapping, save it. All right, so now we can check out the mapping, and here we go. The approver is now explicitly mapped to the user admin and cat together. And with that said, let's go back to runtime and submit a new request. Let's see. All right, so we'll have a date, and here we go. Let's submit this request approval process. So now we should be able to see under approval, the approver's perspective, we can see that the task assignment has arrived to the admin and cat grant. And if we want to be sure, we can click into the task assignment and wait for the web page to load. Just a moment here. All right. So if you were to click on the process status indicator up here, we can see that the approval indeed has been received by admin user and cat grant user. So without further ado, let's click on approve. And okay, so from the perspective of the admin user, we can see that the approval has been done. But if you were to go to my submitted request, you can see that from the perspective of the requester, this process is still not complete because cat grant has not approved it yet. So what happens is now we're going to use a different browser and we are going to log in from cat grant's perspective. So we're going to log in as cat, his username is cat, and his password is, well, password by default. Let's log in here. Okay, so now we are logged in as cat grant. Let's run this app. Let's launch this app in the runtime. So as we can see, as the user cat, we now have the task assignment to also approve it. So let's also do that from the perspective of cat. So now, if I were to approve this task assignment, let it flow. Okay, so now coming back to the admin's perspective, let's refresh the submitted request inbox, and we can see that the previous process instance is now gone and completed. So let's check the close request. And here we go. So we can see this is our task assignment that has been that has gone through multiple approval. Let's
So Justin, can we just very quickly revisit the multiple approval settings that you have set?
Sure thing. So we're coming back to our process mapper. We're going to go back to our setting for approval
so
activity.
we have one question from the audience. It is about a approval and all options. Can we make any of the assignee to approve, or is it possible to say we will need 2 out of 5 to approve, and I mean fine granular control to it? Is it possible?
Perhaps we can work with a specific example. So as you said, Hugo, that you want a specific number of assignee out of a total number, right? So this
I got my answer. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I got my answer. It's on the screen. Yep. Continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Right. So I will now continue. Okay. Hugo, do you want me to continue with the multiple approval? Is that what you meant?
So let's try to any required number, right? Since we are on this page. Oh, okay. So with this, we are able to further customize the options as well. So action, if a rejection received, can we? Yep. I see. Okay. Yeah. Right. So we have granular control on the approval. Thank you, Justin.
Okay, right. All right, so as we can see that previously we have performed a multiple approval scenario from both cat grant and admin. We can see from the comments down here, and we can also check the process status indicator. And yeah, we can see from the process status indicator that the approval has been completed by both admin and cat grant before it is allowed to reach the end of the process flow. And with that said, I've demonstrated multiple approval, and that would be the end of our process enhancement topic. And I hope you guys can get a few inspiration of your ideas towards your no-code, low-code digital transformation journey of your business. And with that said, I will now hand the Q&A session back to Mr. Adrian.
All right, could you pass me the remote control, please?
Sure thing. I'm going to do that very shortly.
Right,
okay.
So before we head to the, thank you. Right, so before we head to the Q&A, so we're just going to show you what's next. So we have a list of new features that we'll be talking about for each of our upcoming episodes. Please do remember that this is subject to change. The next episode that we will be talking about will be the Smart Decision No-Code Decision Tool plugin. And the next episode is the add-on, one of our add-on builders, which is the API builder, right? Oops. Right, so in case you missed our previous episodes, here's a link so you can register and access to the recordings. Here, so we do have tutorials, video tutorials as well on joget.org/tutorials. There are video tutorials on how to build your first app. Sorry, my daughter is.
Yep, so everyone is working remotely. Yeah, so
I do apologize for that.
I'm sure the audience will understand.
Right. Okay, so where was I? Right, the tutorials are done. Right, so we do have our own online knowledge-based website community. So what you can do here is search for further information, anything regarding Joget. You can find some of the best practices and how-to guides and etc. You can also post questions here. Other Joget moderators or experts out there are answering questions every day to provide the help that you need. Oops. And you can also visit our Joget Academy and sign up to our online learning courses as well. Right, we've come to the end of our presentation and it's time for some Q&A session. So we have one here that is asking about process enhancement plugin. Will this plugin affect the other apps I've built? To Hugo or Justin?
Let me try.
Okay, Hugo,
Yeah,
you go.
okay, all right. So it should not, because there are settings that you will need to toggle and enable before it gets. So in short, it will not affect the applications that you have already built because you need to explicitly turn this plugin on in order to use it. Over to you, Adrian.
Okay.
Thank you.
So next questions. Do you have any demo with complex master details and details for tutorials? And the other question is, how do you change the tab sequence on a form?
Right.
Yeah,
okay, back at, okay. Let's see. Can I clarify what is it meant by tab sequence? Perhaps I can demonstrate to you in live.
From my understanding of the question, I think tab sequence in a form. So maybe the multi-page form, I presume?
Right, okay. Hugo, would you like to take over this one?
Sure. Can you head towards our Joget marketplace?
Sure thing.
And our KB as well. So
okay.
in terms of form designs, there are, it is really up to your requirements, and also, I mean, at the platform level, this is what we has to offer. So in the marketplace, we can try to search for the section. Can you just Control F and search for sections, and okay, it's not in So there's this sections tab plugin. This is used to organize if you have multiple sections in the forms and it is a rather long form, you can also consider one of these plugin in order to organize them. So instead of showing 5 sections top to down, we can organize them into a tab fashion. And so there are various plugins available in the marketplace in order to do this. If you can just go back, and I believe there's another plugin for that. Can you search for wizard?
Sure thing.
Okay,
right.
so
the question has been expanded. It's actually more on the fields. Can you make the fields, make it vertically or horizontal in a section?
Vertical or horizontal?
Within a form.
Within a form.
So I presume right now the fields are in vertical order.
Okay, so I'm going to show you. Here's a form. So can I know exactly what is it meant by horizontal or vertical?
All right, I presume it's the column. Could you add another column there?
Yeah, sure. You can actually add multiple columns into your Joget form. So how you can do that, there's a button here that says add column. So if you click on that, now you can add more fields into this section over here. So for example, if I were to drag this field, the date picker on the right, and if I were to click on preview, you can see that now you can have your fields line up on different column sections of the form itself. So I hope this is the correct answer for the question.
Yep, it does. So we do have another question. If we don't install process enhancement plugin, can I still perform the functions you mentioned, like multi-approval, clarify, withdraw?
So for that question, there's I can actually see 3 questions inside that single sentence itself. So let's go for it one by one. So the first part is you say, is it possible to perform? What's the first part again, Adrian?
Why is the what's the question? Okay, if you don't install process enhancement plugin, can I still perform the functions you mentioned, such as multi-approval, clarify, and withdraw?
All right, sure. So coming back to the processes, for clarification, specifically, that can be handled by how you design your process inside, how you create your process design. So for example, here there is a clarification activity. and you can govern these route transitions via the decision plugin, and have it route towards the correct activity when the user selects. Depending on how the form is designed, you can actually design a clarification activity fairly easily. For multiple approval, I'm going to go to the Joget knowledge base very quickly. So hang on for a moment. Okay. So now I'm navigating to the knowledge base. So for multiple approval, as you can see in the plugin, it is a matter of a few seconds. All you need to do is check the option, select a few things here and there perhaps, and that's about it. But now without the plugin, by default, that capability is not possible, but possible via coding. But I would like to highlight the amount of code required just to support that specific feature. So let's type it in here. Let's see if I can search for the correct page. So here we go. Right. So this is the information for multiple approval. So here's the guide. So here we can already see that we have to write code in able to support this feature. And yep, and so with the instructions here. And this is not all the coding that's involved yet. If we were to show you one more page, so let's navigate there very shortly. Approval. Right, so coming to the one of the guides that the community has contributed, there's even more coding required just to support multiple approval. And now to modify this specific behavior, you have to go down to the code, you have to, you require a developer to modify, to alter to your requirement, to your preference. In short, it's not ideal in the long run, and it's a lot easier to just check a configuration and you'll be good to go. So I hope that answer is detailed for that question. So next, Adrian.
All right, okay, so we have one last question. Okay, so like PWA, you mentioned push notification and offline abilities. How do you enable it?
Okay, so for push notifications and offline capabilities, right?
For PWA,
so,
yeah.
Okay, so PWA, very good question, by the way. PWA is already incorporated into every Joget app by default. So for example, even this expenses claim app that comes default in Joget is already supporting PWA as its baseline. So there's not really much you have to configure. So if you really want to support PWA in several and caching towards your user view menus, all we need to do is edit the user view. And as what I did previously, all you have to do is edit the element, go to performance and offline, and check for caching for offline support for whichever user view menu that you require when you're offline. And other than that, you're pretty much good to go. There's not much that's needed for PWA support. In fact, this feature is enabled by default. So these are the options here that allows you to enable or disable this feature. Now, for web push notification, all you have to do is click on download from Marketplace. And we are going to search for a specific plugin, which is called the push notification tool. And once this push notification tool basically is the tool required for Joget PWA app. So this is to be specific, this is a process tool plugin type. All you need to do is click on install. So let's see if we can do this live. So very quickly, I'm going to install this plugin, refresh, and I'm going to edit the simple service request app once again. So I'm doing this live. Go to processes. And if you recall previously, I did mention that the push notification tool is a process tool. So we're going to go to our tool mapping. So first things first, as you can see, this is a process tool for email on received. Let's say now this specific tool, it has been mapped towards an email tool. So let's say we wouldn't want an email tool. We want to replace it with a push notification. So let's go ahead and edit this plugin. We're going to replace it. Here we go. So here's the push notification tool. We're going to click on it. Okay, so let's just configure this live. For convenience, I'm going to configure this very quickly. Okay, the subject, sample notification. Okay, so just like that, I've managed to key in the information that I need. I'm going to save the plugin information. And okay, so now we have the push notification tool for email on received. So upon submitting our process instance, we should be able to expect a notification to pop up below the window here. So let's try it out in runtime and see how it goes. All right, click on submit request. Let me fill up the information very quickly. Okay, so let's submit it and see what happens.
So Justin, just a quick note, did we manage to show the audience the audit trail user notification plugin? It is a plugin that already part of the product, and we do not need to install it from the marketplace. So what the plugins would do is that on new assignment creations assigned to any users, it will send out a push notification as well.
Yeah, I'm about to show that right after this. So as you can see here, I actually received the sample notification. And in Windows, this is how it looks like, right? So let's just swipe that away. Okay, so by Hugo's question, we actually already support have a push notification tool baked into Joget DX itself. And the way we access it is by going to Properties and Export, and clicking on Set Plugin Default Properties. And now we will find a audit trail plugin type, which is let's expand this here. Here, so right here, there's also a plugin that we can use that applies for all of the activities inside Joget, of the Joget app itself. So in user notification, the configuration is highly similar. This one also sends out an email along with a push notification to your devices. So the configuration is fairly similar. And to learn about it, you can head down to the Joget knowledge base to learn more about it. Okay, so handing back to you, Adrian.
Okay, so that's all the questions that we can have for now. I understand there are a few more questions submitted. We will be answering those questions via follow-up via email. So as a reminder, once you exit this webinar, you will be redirected to the feedback form. Thank you everybody for attending this presentation. We would love to hear your feedback, and I'm thrilled that you were able to join. Have a great day.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope to see you on the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care and have a good day.